The open road, freedom, adventure. That's what RVs promise. But not all deliver. Some turn dreams into nightmares. These aren't just bad RVs. They're the absolute worst American-made motorhomes in history. Mechanical failures, shoddy construction, and design flaws so bad they'll make you cringe. Today, we'll be exposing the dark side of RV life. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride through RV hell. First up, the Winnebago Lasharo. Launched in 1983, was Winnebago's attempt to cash in on the fuel-efficient craze. They took a Renault van, slapped on some RV features, and called it a day. But they forgot to make it actually work. Its biggest crime? The engine. Powered by a puny 2.2-liter diesel engine, this thing had all the get-up-and-go of a sleepy sloth. Trying to climb a hill? Better pack a lunch. And a dinner. And maybe breakfast for the next day. But it wasn't just slow. It was a mechanical nightmare. Owners reported more issues than a therapist's waiting room. Electrical problems, transmission failures, and a cooling system that seemed designed by a team of saboteurs. The cherry on top? Parts were harder to find than a needle in a haystack. When something inevitably broke, owners were left high and dry, often stranded in the middle of nowhere. The Lasharo limped along until 1992, when Winnebago finally put it out of its misery. Its legacy lives on as a cautionary tale of what happens when you prioritize fuel efficiency over, well, everything else. Next, the Fleetwood Pace Arrow of the 1970s looked like a winner on paper. It was big, bold, and promised all the comforts of a home on wheels. In reality, it was more like a mobile lesson in Murphy's Law. Let's start with the build quality. The Pace Arrow was about as solid as a house of cards in a windstorm. Owners reported more rattles than a baby toy store. Drive over a pebble? Brace yourself for a symphony of squeaks and creaks. But the real fun began when it rained. The Pace Arrow had more leaks than a government agency. Water found its way in through the roof, the windows, and probably places that defied the laws of physics. And let's not forget the electrical system. It was about as reliable as a weather forecast. Lights flickered like a haunted house, appliances had a mind of their own, and the battery drained faster than a smartphone running Pokemon Go. Despite all this, the Pace Arrow was popular. Why? Well, it was the 70s. Maybe all that leaded gasoline was affecting people's judgment, or maybe RV buyers were just more forgiving back then. Next up, the Coachman Catalina of the late 90s and early 2000s proves that not all that glitters is gold. In fact, sometimes it's just a pile of problems wrapped in a shiny RV package. Water leaks were the Catalina's specialty. It's like the designers looked at a boat and thought, let's make it do that, but on land. Owners found themselves playing a constant game of find the leak, with new water sources appearing like some twisted version of whack-a-mole. But hey, at least you could distract yourself from the leaks by dealing with the constant appliance failures. The refrigerator decided to take vacations more often than it worked. The stove had two temperatures, Arctic and Inferno. And the air conditioning? Let's just say it was more like a warm breath than a cool breeze. The coup de grace? Well, the Catalina's construction was weaker than a house of straw. Walls flexed, floors creaked, and cabinets had a habit of ejecting their contents during turns. It was like living in a funhouse, minus the fun. Next, the Gulfstream Vista Cruiser of the 2000s was the RV equivalent of that kid in school who peaked too early. It looked promising on the showroom floor, but once you got it on the road, that's when the trouble started. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should we say the elephant under the hood. The Vista Cruiser's transmission was about as reliable as a chocolate teapot. It had a nasty habit of deciding it was done for the day, often in the middle of nowhere. But wait, there's more! The Vista Cruiser didn't just break down. It broke down with style. Owners reported a smorgasbord of mechanical issues. Engine problems? Check. Electrical gremlins? You bet. Suspension issues that made you feel like you were riding a mechanical bull? Absolutely. The interior wasn't much better either. It was like the designers had a vendetta against comfort. The layout was about as practical as a screen door on a submarine. Storage was an afterthought, and the living space felt more cramped than a submarine, and probably less watertight. Next, the Chinook RV of the 2000s. Marketed as the sports car of RVs, it turned out to be more like a clunker in a fancy paint job. The crown jewel of Chinook's follies? The roof, or should we say the sieve. These RVs had a nasty habit of letting the great outdoors come indoors, whether you wanted it to or not. Water damage was so common, owners started to think rust was a design feature. But hey, at least the water damage distracted you from the other problems, right? Like the fact that these luxury quote-unquote RVs had all the structural integrity of a sandcastle. Walls flexed, floors creaked, and driving one felt like piloting a jello mold down the highway. And let's talk about the sports car handling. Unless they meant the sports car was a Model T Ford, they were way off the mark. The Chinook handled turns like a drunken elephant on roller skates. Not exactly the nimble road warrior they advertised. The Fleetwood Bounder of the late 1980s was the RV world's way of saying, hey, who needs comfort and reliability anyway? It was a budget-friendly option that made you question if saving money was really worth it. Let's start with the electrical system, which was about as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake. Lights flickered like a low-budget haunted house, and using more than one appliance at a time was a game of Russian roulette. But the real star of the show was the Bounder's uncanny ability to recreate weather conditions inside the RV. Roof leaks were so common, owners started to wonder if Fleetwood was secretly trying to create the world's first mobile water park. And insulation? What insulation? The Bounder was an expert at being an oven in summer and a freezer in winter. The build quality was, let's say, unique. Driving down the road, you'd be treated to a symphony of rattles, creaks, and mysterious thumps that would make any ghost hunter ecstatic. It was like the RV was trying to shake itself apart at every turn. The Thor Motor Coach Hurricane of the 2010s proves that even in modern times, we haven't quite mastered the art of building reliable RVs. This model was less hurricane and more perfect storm of problems. First up, the electrical system. It was like Thor himself was in charge of the wiring, randomly throwing lightning bolts through the circuitry. One day your lights would work, the next day your fridge would decide to take a vacation. But why stop at electrical issues when you can have water problems too? We can have it all with the Hurricane. It seemed to have a personal vendetta against staying dry. Water leaks were so common, owners started to wonder if Thor was secretly trying to create the world's first amphibious RV. And let's talk about that driving experience. The Hurricane handled like, well, a hurricane. It swayed in the wind, it bounced on bumps, and it made every drive feel like an adventure. Just not the good kind. It was less king of the road and more pray we make it to the campground. The Holiday Rambler Illumascape of the 2000s is proof that you can't judge a book by its cover, or an RV by its shiny exterior. This luxury quote-unquote model turned out to be more lemon than luxury. Let's start with the appliances. They were like temperamental toddlers, working one minute, throwing a tantrum the next. The fridge had a habit of deciding it was done with this whole cooling thing. And the stove thought simmer meant incinerate. And don't even get us started on the air conditioning. But the fun didn't stop there. The interior fittings were apparently installed by someone who thought secure was just a suggestion. Cabinet doors fell off, drawers stuck, and countertops peeled faster than a sunburned tourist. Water leaks? You bet. The Illumiscape had more leaks than a, boat with leaks that was you get it, it leaks a lot. Owners became expert water detectives, always on the hunt for the next drip, drip, drop, drop, or indoor waterfall. Next up, the Forest River Georgetown of the 2000s and early 2010s is the RV equivalent of that kid in school who looked great on paper but consistently failed to deliver on exam day. It promised luxury and reliability. It delivered, let's just say it delivered something else entirely. First off, let's talk about craftsmanship, or should we say lack thereof? The Georgetown seemed to be built by people who thought quality control was a type of remote control. Things fell apart faster than a sandcastle in a tsunami. Cabinet doors decided they'd rather be on the floor than attached to the cabinets. And trim pieces, they came loose, apparently trying to escape the RV entirely. If you see them heading towards the border, let us know. But the real star of the show, the roof. Or as Georgetown owners called it, the chance to sleep under the stars. These RVs leaked so much. Owners started to wonder if Forest River was secretly trying to create the world's first mobile aquarium. Every rainstorm was an adventure in indoor waterfall management. Last but certainly not least in our parade of problematic RVs, we have the Monaco Knight of the 2010s. This RV was living proof that Granny was right when she said things were better back in my day. Marketed as a luxury RV, the Monaco Knight had a price tag to match, but as many owners quickly discovered, the high price tag didn't translate to high quality. It was like paying for a 5-star hotel and ending up in a roadside motel. The Knight's biggest flaw? Its engine and transmission. These vital components seem to have it in for reliability and consistency. Owners reported frequent breakdowns, often leaving them stranded in the middle of nowhere. Nothing says luxury travel quite like waiting for a tow truck on the side of the highway, right? But the problems didn't stop there. The Knight also suffered from electrical issues that would make an electrician weep. Lights flickered, appliances behaved erratically, and the battery seemed to have a lifespan of a mayfly. And let's not forget about the build quality. For a luxury RV, the Knight had more rattles and squeaks than a pet store during feeding time. Driving down the road was like being in a symphony of creaks and groans. To top it all off, many owners reported poor customer service when trying to get these issues resolved. It was like adding insult to injury, or in this case, adding a flat tire to a broken engine. The Monaco Knight of the 2010s serves as a stark reminder that a high price tag doesn't always guarantee quality. It's the RV equivalent of a cautionary tale, warning buyers that sometimes the knight in shining armor turns out to be more of a court jester. From leaky roofs to temperamental engines, these RVs have shown us the dark side of life on the road. But here's the thing. The RV industry learned from these mistakes. On the whole, today's models are leagues ahead in quality and reliability. So next time you're shopping for an RV, remember these cautionary tales. Do your research, read reviews, and maybe avoid anything described as the sports car of the RVs. Ready for more insider tips to elevate your RV journey? Watch this video here. And until next time, safe travels!